'Cause we speak bold, ain't tripping on the haters. It could take freedom from a cold dead hands. We're locked and loaded for the last dance. 'Cause we're the new American gangsters, ready to die for this land.
Well, good evening, Shelby. How are you doing today?
Great. How are you, Brian?
I think I'm pretty good. Yeah, I guess regardless of what anybody else thinks, I'm doing pretty good. Yeah.
We've got some interesting stuff to talk about tonight, yeah?
Yeah, we do. I guess we're going to primarily be spending our time talking about signature verification and this way radically dysfunctional board of supervisors in Maricopa County. Even though it's a majority of 4-1, the Democrats just sitting there laughing, right, at this whole dispute that was actually caused, right, was it not, by all of the losers in the 2024 election, right?
Well, there was a big role played in it, right, because they wanted to strip the authority of the recorder as much as they could.
Right.
And so they got Stephen Richer kind of as his final hurrah exit strategy to sign off on this new shared services agreement, which basically takes away quite a bit of authority that the recorder has traditionally had through their shared service agreement. And it is interesting because we talk about, Democrats versus Republicans, but the Board of Supervisors, like you said, it's 4 Republicans and 1 Democrat, all voting lockstep in regards to the decisions they're making against the Republican county recorder Heap. So it's kind of an interesting dynamic. For the Democrat, it's just a bonus because the Republicans are actually the ones that are waging this battle.
Right. And it's funny because, what I find, absolutely hilarious about it is you get people like the former recorder. I forgot his name. I think it's because I want to forget it.
Stephen Richer.
Stephen Richer.
Yes.
Right. He got his butt kicked. Right. He got what we call bloodied in the election. He got beat. There's no two ways about it. Right. And so he's this big proponent of saving democracy, but on his way out the door, right, he enters this agreement, which he should have never done. He should have had respect enough for the man who beat him.
Well, even not the man. If he doesn't want to respect the man, respect the office.
Right.
As an office holder, you should respect the office.
And so this is a man who not only tried to get people in Maricopa County fired for retweeting tweets, right, and things of that nature, that tried to censor the speech of conservatives, right? But this is also a man who, when he lost, he was so petty. Yes, that's right, Stephen Richer, you are a petty man. He enters in this agreement with the Board of Supervisors that now results in this conflict we see in Maricopa County that stands the potential for really harming the 2026 elections. And I think that's what, if I had to guess, that's part of Stephen Richer's play, is to be able to say, see, you should have kept me. I would have done a better job.
Well, and I think part of it is the Board of Supervisors traditionally, and we do have a few Board of Supervisors that were not newly elected that are kind of holdovers, right, from the last administration.
Yeah.
They want to maintain the status quo.
Right.
What they've been doing is exactly what they want to continue doing, if not doing more to make it a bureaucratic system versus an elected system, right? And what they saw was a man who won overwhelmingly in Maricopa County, not just in the primary, but in the general, who ran on a platform of securing our elections and an America First platform.
Yeah, who we know Richer is always vehemently opposed.
So they have to oppose the actions of this recorder.
Right.
And one of the predominant things that they keep leaning on is that Recorder Heap's new signature verification process
Right.
is disenfranchising voters. And your
Right.
favorite guy, Stephen Richer, actually is quoted in a New Times article in regards to that and what he believes of signature verification. So let's talk about that a little bit, Brian. I mean, what did we discover as an organization when we did the investigation into signature verification about the process?
That the process sucks.
Right.
That in 2020, the process was virtually non-existent. Under Stephen Richer in 2022, Stephen Richer kept all of Adrian Fontes's left-leaning employees running the elections department, his side of the elections department. And so he kept the same processes, right? The big difference was in 2020, Runbeck did signature verification and then attached a little flag on each ballot affidavit envelope saying, yeah, I don't know what it said, but it essentially said something tantamount to good versus check, right?
Right.
And so it gave sort of this pre-classification, meaning that there was no real human signature verification because their goal was to push them through just everything and anything as fast as humanly possible, right?
Well, and I will tell you one thing that we did as an organization is we secured a donor. And when we started this investigation, we paid an AI company who is in the industry of signature analyzation, digital signature analyzation, right? And we tried using automated technology to see how it could perform signature verification. And there was a few key things that we learned right away. Number one, in order to catch the fraud, you have to set the sensitivity so high that it practically rejects everything.
Right.
And if you don't set the sensitivity high enough to truly catch the fraud, then everything gets through.
Right.
It clears everything
difficult.
as a good signature. My point is AI is not qualified to do signature verification, even if that was lawful, right?
Even if it was lawful, and it is not. And so, you know, and there you stated the problem very well. I mean, if you're going to use AI to verify your signatures, and I've had conversations on this subject with legislators, looking to draft legislation, and the issue with the AI verifying signatures is, you know, you'll get as good as you tell it, you know, sort of to give. So it's really, there might be a point in time where AI could do an excellent job verifying most signatures, but the problem is the people in power, you know, set the parameters.
Right.
And if you set the parameters to a certain level, it's going to improve everything. You're not going to catch anything.
The output is only as good as the input.
Right.
Right. And that's with anything. A good example of that is if you've ever taken like a PDF form and converted it to Word. If you have a nice, clean PDF form and it's actual form, and you do that conversion, it's beautiful.
If not, you get blah, 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 at ampersand, blah, 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 blah.
Chinese symbols where
It's
they
terrible.
don't belong, right?
It's terrible.
So if we have a system where the input sucks, and we know that with DMV signatures and what we have as qualified, what do they call it, exemplars, it's crap. So crap in, crap out. So it doesn't even matter if you had a system that could do it, and even an election official who was totally above board and did everything right, it's still crap in, crap out. And so, you know, where do we go from here with that?
Well, I don't know. And I'm going to tell you that one reason I like Heaps changes to signature verification is because even with humans, right, you know, really depends on who you hire. right? If you hire a bunch of people who hold this belief that, oh, they voted and they signed the affidavit, therefore we don't want to disenfranchise them. We want every vote to count, right? If you hire a whole bunch of people with that mindset, then you're going to get a whole bunch of people who sit there all day going, approve, 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 because they believe that that vote was cast by a person and therefore should be counted regardless.
Well, you know what? I love what you're saying about that mindset, because Steve, can you put up element 4? We're going to go a little out of order here, Brian, because your favorite person,
we always
Richer,
go out of order,
right?
Yeah.
Stephen Richer.
Yeah.
He has a mentality about mail-in ballot that if anybody working in signature verification shared this mindset, then you're clearly going to get a different result than, say, somebody who comes in either neutral or with the mindset that there could be fraudulent ballots that need to be identified, right? Go ahead and put it up if you would, please. Okay. This is an article by the New Times that said, did the county recorder reject thousands of legitimate ballots, right? And this is them critiquing Justin Heap's new process. And if you can scroll down, please, Steve, there is a quote here, and it's the main reason I pulled this up. So they're talking about the vast number of ballots that were rejected. And frankly, I don't even think enough were rejected, if you want my honest opinion, but go ahead and keep scrolling down. Okay, I think it's right here. Oh, this is Thomas Galvin. That's a significant increase in bad signatures, said board chairman Thomas Galvin, a Republican like Heap, like more than double percentage-wise. Supervisor Kate Brophy McGee, also a Republican, said she was very concerned at the number of rejected ballots. So let's talk about what we're looking at. In the 2024 election, ran under Stephen Richer, there were 7,220 signatures, and it came to 0.38% of all ballots were rejected. Okay, under Recorder Heap, we have a percentage of 0.85%. So when they're talking more than 2 times, they're literally still under 1% of all ballots being rejected. Sorry, Steve, go ahead and keep that up. There is a quote, and I'm sure it's in this article. Keep scrolling down. You would, please. Keep going. Okay, that's Gallego. Okay, keep going. Right here. Go under where it says ABC 15 data analyst Garrett Archer. This is a quote from Richer. As for the notion that perhaps Heap's new process caught fraudulent ballots that previously slipped through his predecessor in the job, centrist Republican Stephen Richer tossed water on this idea. Quote, laugh out loud at the idea of people going out of their way to steal a mail ballot packet and forge a signature to be able to cast one more vote in a school board election, Richard wrote. I guess fewer than 5 of the 5,903 rejected were actually attempts at fraudulent voting.
Yeah.
That is the mentality we are facing right there. Is only 5 people in the entire Maricopa County would potentially commit voter fraud. More people than that speed every day, right, Brian? More people than that shoplift every day, would you say?
100%.
More people than that assault another human being in Maricopa County on a daily basis. But
I'm
no
guessing,
more than 5 would try and vote a ballot.
Yeah, I'm guessing more people than that engage in fraudulent Medicaid, Medicare claims in Maricopa County on a daily basis.
Exactly.
You know?
On a daily basis. And what he wants the American people to believe, the narrative that the Board of Supervisors and former Recorder Richer is trying to implant in people's mind, because this is indoctrination, in my opinion,
you know
is
what?
that these people will not commit voter fraud.
Well, Garrett Archer was also mentioned in that article, and I saw a tweet I just had to respond to the other day. Garrett Archer did a tweet about the study we had done, and he literally said that we were comparing signatures to deeds and other things.
Totally untrue.
Totally untrue, 100%.
But of course, he's not a real journalist.
He's not. He's a, what, Pravda.
Propaganda.
Propaganda, yeah.
Propaganda.
Yeah. And so, it's interesting that they just want to keep this system going, because when they say centrist Republican, what they really mean is somebody affiliated with the Democratic Party.
Right.
They don't, and because the partisan breakdown in America today is MAGA versus essentially everybody else, and you get centrist Republican. What is a centrist Republican anyway?
I've heard of a moderate Republican.
I've heard of a moderate Republican.
But what is a centrist Republican?
Yeah.
Well, it's somebody left of Republican. Right? Which means they are not actually Republican.
Right. And so, it's the centrist Republicans and the Democrats. They're one crew sort of working together to undermine the Trump administration and to undermine MAGA at the local community and state level. And that's sort of what this huge debate is taking place in Maricopa County between the Board of Supervisors and Justin Heap. This was the moderate Republicans on their way out the door after getting, defeated, or like Bill Gates choosing to leave because he would have gotten trounced, and he knew his name was crap with Maricopa County voters. And so these losers create this impending war that takes place. And I got to say, I think Heap's doing a pretty good job. And sort of to finish the play on what I was talking about when I was talking about, if you hire a bunch of people who just believe this concept that every vote must count, period, regardless,
and that every vote is good because there's no fraud. And that every vote is good because there's no fraud, because people like, Richard push that mantra, then they're just gonna open every ballot. They're gonna take out all every envelope, take out all the ballots, and just count them. It doesn't matter what, right? And so if another group of people, say, for example, this user 104, right? Mm-hmm. You hire somebody in Maricopa County to do signature verification, like this user 124. And Brian, can we give some context on who this user is, what this graph represents, and where it came from?
Well, we don't know who this user is because a court has denied the people of Maricopa County the right to know who's actually approving signatures on ballot affidavit envelopes, right? And that was at Stephen Richards' request.
Right.
And so, secrecy and silence in government, just trust your experts, right?
I'm going to turn this so the camera can pick it up better. There we go.
These are charts that were made during the Lake v. Hobbs litigation, and basically what they represent is, and we got a video to show you as well, people engaged in signature verification, right?
Right.
So the thought was, my old employers at the law firms I worked for, they know every keystroke I make on my computer, right? Everything. They can tell what I'm doing. They know what I'm doing. They can go back in my history and look how long I've been in a document. They can look at what I've been working on. They can look at my search history in my web browser, whatever. They can find out anything they want about what I'm doing with my time during the day by looking at my computer.
Right.
So my thought was that when people click enter to approve or reject a ballot, that there's a record of that in the computer system.
Those keystrokes, those dispositions of the ballot. Yes.
So we did a public records request to the elections department and recorder's office asking for all of this disposition data so that we could actually plot how long it was taking each individual that was verifying signatures to verify signatures. right? And so that's what this data represents. And so if you look at this chart for user 134, this is just one per,
No,
or
this is-
104.
This is 104. This
Right.
user actually did a great job.
Yeah,
Right.
this is an example of a conscientious person.
Mhm.
This is an example of the person that doesn't just say, "Oh, every ballot counts. It doesn't matter how we got it or where it came from. We got to count it." Right? This is a user that. And Steve, can we pull up what's that document that from the last one I sent you, Steve?
Oh, the number 7, signature verification
And
fundamentals.
This is why it's incredibly important. And so, if you look at the signature on an early voting affidavit equals voter's identification, right? And so you go to the polls, right? And you whip out your wallet and you give them your ID, right?
Mhm.
You give them your ID, and they can look
Yes.
at your ID and they can say, "Oh man, Shelby, this doesn't look like you, but it does look like that Brian Blem guy." And they can say, "Okay, Brian Blem, this looks like you. It's got my signature on it." They can look at my signature, and they can, and then they would print a ballot, and they would then take that ballot and run it through the. If you went to vote early, they would put it in a white envelope that you had to sign,
Right.
and then if you were voting on election day, they would run it through the tabulator, right? Chances are in 2022 the tabulator wouldn't work. But
that is
yeah,
ID verification.
Yeah.
That is the true sense
Right.
of showing an ID,
Right.
proving your identity,
right.
and then receiving a ballot. Right.
And so the only identification required when you're voting by mail is comparison of that signature.
Yeah, Steve, put back number 7, if you would.
Yeah,
There you go.
and
Right
so-
here. This is what they talk about here.
They compare the signature on the affidavit envelope with the voter's signature on previous affidavits, which I argue they have no legal authority to do, and then on voter registration forms and AVO requests. That's a request to be put on the absent early vote or the what is it?
Active early voting list.
voting list, right?
Mhm.
And so comparing the signature with the voter's registration form, essentially, right?
And
To
that
make
proves
sure-
your identity.
And that proves your identity.
But right, well, but let me ask you a question, Brian. What if the voter signature on one of those other items
Mhm.
is wrong? What if it's a fraudulent voter registration? What
Yeah.
if it's somebody forging somebody else?
Right.
When is the identity verified initially? Because, as Steve said, when you go to the bank,
Mhm.
you sign a signature card, but you
Right.
have to show your ID, you have to provide your social security
Right.
number. All this validation is done
Right.
first. When you register to vote, how do we know that signature is yours to begin with?
Right. Well, how do we even know they're checking ID? Right. Because we have all of these non-governmental organizations allowed to pump in signature voter or voter registration information directly into the statewide system. And even if they don't pump in a new complete voter registration form, they have the ability to pump in address changes and things of that nature, right?
Well, and when we did our investigative audit on the
Right.
voter registrations and signature verification,
Mhm.
we found quite a few registrations
Mhm.
where they were either not signed
Right.
or the person signing the registration
Right.
was not the person that was registered to vote,
Right.
along with, like you said, changes of address
Right.
without knowledge and consent of the
Right.
voter.
Like the accidental system errors in Arizona's motor vehicle registration,
Right.
when they were automatically changing people's voter registration, and that disenfranchised thousands throughout the state of Arizona in the 2022 election, right?
Right. And so this goes back to what we
Right.
talked about, crap in, crap out.
Right.
I mean, if you're comparing crap to crap, you're going to get crap. right?
Yeah. So I guess getting back to this graph, right? And so if we look at this line here, the red line here, and this will be on all of the graphs, 4.6, it says. The Attorney General in the state of Arizona, after
it was under Brnovich.
Right? After the 2020 election, investigated Adrian Fontes, who was then Maricopa County Recorder, and his signature verification processes, and he found a few things. One, it was illegal for Maricopa County to have Runbeck electronically verify signatures. And then he found that the average time to verify a signature should be around 4.6 seconds.
The minimum time.
The minimum time.
The minimum time
Right.
required to diligently perform signature verification is 4.6 seconds on a direct match.
Right. And so if you look at this person doing signature verification, you can see on average, 10 seconds. Actually, it's more like 12 seconds, 11 seconds. Down here, approved some in about 6 seconds. And so this user, you can see, is sort of right in this 10 to 20 second range to, approve signatures.
Right, with some complex clusters even going
Right.
above 30 seconds.
Right.
So this user, and you probably can't read it,
Mhm.
those looking at home, averaged 18.3 seconds. 18.3 seconds average, which is
Right.
3 times the minimum requirement
Right.
that was established by the Attorney General, right?
And this individual approved a total of just over 13,000 ballot affidavit envelopes. Right. And let's pull up really quickly the one. Which one is it? The one with 4 points, number 2. And so just to look at the sort of process a little bit, just to see why it takes time. And so this is straight out of Justin Heaps' handbook for signature verification training, right? This is training people.
Right.
And so they're showing you with all of these arrows what you need to do. Right?
And the green arrow points to the exemplar. This is
Right.
the signature on file that you're comparing to.
And the red arrow points to the name of the voter on the ballot affidavit envelope, right?
Correct.
So the first thing you're supposed to do is compare the red arrow name with the yellow arrow name.
Right.
And then the next thing you do is compare the blue arrow signature with the green arrow signature.
Oh, yeah, and I had that backwards. The green arrow
Right.
is your ballot affidavit envelope.
Right.
The
And
blue arrow is
your registration form or
form.
whatever.
Right, your
whatever
exemplar.
And so, Steve, can you pull up number 1 right now, which is a sort of a blow-up version of the right-hand side of the screen? And so, why would this take, in Brnovich's mind, a minute and a half, right? Now, if you're old as the hills like me, then you're probably going to have a hard time reading the name of that voter right there just above the green line. It's circled in red. That's the name of the voter. Can you zoom in on that, Steve? No, we can't zoom?
We can't zoom.
Oh, okay. No problem. And so you can see the tip of the red arrow pointing to it. So you've got to compare the names the red arrow and the yellow arrow are pointing to verify that this ballot affidavit envelope represents the voter
Right.
you're comparing signatures for.
So you're first verifying and
Right.
establishing a match and identity
Yes,
before you're establishing whether it's the actual voter.
right. And so once you do that, then you have to then compare the signatures. If there's any slight difference you perceive or you're questionable about the first signature you're comparing it to, then you have to scroll to a new comparative signature, right?
Correct.
Right. And so that should take, according to Brnovich, at least 4.6 seconds at a minimum.
Well, and you would imagine you're probably looking at, even with some of the fastest processors, a fraction of a second of that, maybe half of the 0.6 or the 0.6 part, is just loading the images.
Right.
Just clicking and getting the images to load clearly for viewing takes time.
Yeah. And our video sort of shows how long it takes, right?
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So this is one voter.
A conscientious voter, Brian.
A conscientious voter.
Or voter worker, election worker.
The other three examples we have are not conscientious workers. And so this is user number 112, right? And user number 112, they start off sort of, oh yeah, maybe they're going to be, checking and making sure and, and then all of a sudden, boom, they're really pushing them through. Overall, the total average rate to approve 62,000 plus signatures.
And that's a critical thing to point out, not to sidetrack you, Brian, but the last user went through approximately just under 14,000.
Right.
Conscientiously.
Right.
But the person who is not conscientious did 4 times that amount.
Yeah.
Easy, right? At least 4 to 5 times that amount. Okay, go ahead.
And so this is the difference. And so, that's pretty significant, and that's really fast, right? And so if our democracy hinges on people identifying who's an actual voter and who's not an actual voter, then we would think we would want conscientious individuals verifying signatures. And one important reason for that is really so that if these signatures don't match, so the Maricopa County Elections Department can reach out to that voter and say, hey, but you know what the problem with that is? And Chris harps on this all the time.
You don't get to see the signature that they're looking at.
Right. They call you and say, hey, we need to cure your ballot.
Right.
And so they give them a little bit of information about themselves, which anybody could have access to if you've got access, to the voter registration database that's publicly available.
And many times they're discouraged from even asking for PII, right? So things like social security numbers, they say, well, most voters don't want to give their social.
Right.
So don't ask for it.
Right.
So a lot of times they're not even drilling in to confirm that identity.
Right.
But even if it was the voter, how do we know the ballot they are going to count belongs to that voter? Right. If somebody calls and says, hey, Shelby, did you vote in this election? Did you cast a ballot? Did you send in a mail-in ballot envelope?
Right.
Well, yes, I did. Okay, so this is you. Thank you. Have a nice day. Your ballot's cured, right? I don't know that is the ballot I chose to vote.
Right.
How do I know that?
Right. They never show you your signature. Just never at all. Right. And even if you ask for it, they won't give it to you.
No, there's no mechanism by which you can view it.
Right.
And I want to go back to what Brian had talked about earlier, and that's this red line. So this red line is the minimum amount of time it takes to conscientiously perform signature verification. And remember, that's 4.6 seconds. The average that those nearly 63,000 ballot affidavits, 3.4 seconds per ballot affidavit envelope, which is under more than a second less than the minimum requirement set by the Attorney General standards.
Well, here's another guy. This is user number 79. And this user approved 54,000 plus ballot affidavit envelopes. And you can see this guy's average. I mean, it's an average of 2.8 seconds per signature, right?
Right.
2.8 seconds per signature. These people aren't really making a comparison. And it's hard. You have to even wonder if they're even verifying the identity of the person on the ballot with the identity of the voter registration form they're looking at.
Well, let's see how this correlates, Brian, with Justin Heap, Recorder Heap's new system. You have the first user 104, who is conscientious. And then you have user 79 and user 112, clearly not conscientious.
Right.
Under Recorder Heap's process,
Mm-hmm.
there are two people reviewing every signature. Is that correct?
100% correct.
Which means if you have number 79 in there,
Right.
maybe 104
Right.
would then review them a second time and catch what 79
Right.
didn't. And this is what the Board of Supervisors have problems with, is
Mhm.
checks and balance,
Yeah. And
which is all Recorder Heap is trying to do.
that's all it is, the check and the balance. Now, this guy we actually have video of. This guy is amazing. Look at this. Look at the work this guy did. User 134. He's a fairly old dude. And he managed to approve 33,000 plus affidavits in an average time of 2.4 seconds.
And he caught quite a few naps in between.
Right.
I mean, in the video footage, he did all of this and still was able to take power naps.
Right. Right. Steve, we got that video. Can we show that video?
So this is actual video
Right.
footage of 134.
Right.
And the interesting thing I'll kind of preface while he's getting that ready is you will see two verifiers side by side, user 134 and another user who is akin to 104 in that they are conscientious,
Right.
they're thorough, and you
Mhm.
can see the stark difference in
Right.
contrast in how many ballot affidavit envelopes
Right.
they're able to process in
And-
the same amount of time.
And I'm also going to point out really quickly that we were able to attach the guy in the video to this user number, not by virtue of knowing anybody's name or who actually 134 was or where he was seated, but we were actually able to line up the timing marks, right? We could watch this user on video and look at his computer activity history and line up where he falls asleep and take a nap, line up where he takes a drink of coffee, line up where he logs off his computer to go take a nap in his car or whatever he was doing.
Yep.
And so you have this series of timing marks we were able to correlate with. Now, the result of us doing that and making this video public was not more transparency from Maricopa County, was it? What did Richard do?
Yeah, it was the opposite of transparency. That's what
100%.
he thought us. He didn't want us to know
Right.
who the workers were. That was
Right.
number one. More of the records became obscured. And then the following election cycle, when
Right.
we requested the same timing data, they tried to remove certain elements of that
Right.
data prior to giving it to us.
Well, not only that, but the next election, didn't Stephen Richer reorganize signature verification so you could not see anybody doing any other work?
They put privacy screens on
Right.
all of the computers. And for those of you that don't know what a privacy screen is, it's something where when you look at it from a certain angle or in a certain lighting, it's just a black screen. So
Right.
you cannot see what's actually happening.
Right.
Plus the cameras were moved further back and we just weren't able to have the same views whatsoever. So there was a lot of changes made
Right.
to prevent us from finding
And
the
here's,
evidence.
here's the funny thing. Well, let's take a look at it. We can talk
Yep.
about the video as we go. So, Steve, if we tell you to pause, we'll pause real quick so we can.
Go ahead and
Go
play
ahead.
it, and then we'll tell you when to pause. Yep. We're going to talk a little bit through this. Sure. Okay, so it says you're about to see 90 seconds of signature verification process where one person is verifying signatures as fast as they can load compared to the person sitting next to them. So you'll see the two terminals. These are signature verification terminals at Maricopa County off right.
And it's also important that we've got the time and date stamp.
Right.
And so if you look at the guy on the left, watch his counter. He's just clicking away. Okay.
As fast as the screen loads, they
Now
are
hold
being
on. Can you
approved.
pause real quick, Steve? Now, if our viewers go back and remember that form we had that showed the name on the ballot affidavit envelope that has to be compared to the name of the voter in the registration record, right? That's the first step. You have to make sure the registration record matches the ballot affidavit.
Well, and I want you to notice his relaxed position.
Right.
Right. If you're having to look at these tiny signatures from back here, it's literally click, 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 click. There is no scrutiny. There's no looking. It's clear in the actions and the motions. That they're not looking at those two tiny little names. And even if you are, you can't look at that and the signatures.
Right. That's 100%.
Right.
And so with the first step being verifying that these two different forms are from the same voter. That's the first step.
Right.
And then you have to compare the signatures, which is another step. You cannot go back to the video, Steve. You cannot tell me that this guy is making any form of comparison to determine that A, the affidavit belongs to that voter, and B, that the signatures match.
Now, I want you to look at the person sitting next to him.
Right.
Do you notice how she is scrolling up and down on the screen and actually zooming in?
Right.
This is somebody who's conducting signature verification.
Right. She's actually looking at other signatures in that voter registration file to validate the legitimacy of the signature.
And you'll also notice the posture. Again, I hate to keep pointing that out, but if you notice, he's leaned back, he's slouched in. Right. She's set up in an upright posture, focused in on the computer screen to actually look at what's there.
Right.
And you have 71 done while the lady next to him only has 8.
And so 80% of Arizona voters use mail-in ballots that require signature verification. This is just one of many workers that we were able to look at. Can we really trust our elections? And the answer to that question, this says this one individual verified almost 27,000 in total. That's not true. The actual number is 33,000 plus. Signatures were verified by this user.
Right.
And
that doesn't include what was it? 79?
Yeah.
Who did 54,000, right? So this is one of many users.
Yeah, and so if you hire people, and like I said before, Steve and Rich are largely kept Adrian Fontes' systems in place. They're both fans of mail-in voting and counting ballots, regardless of where they come from, right? And so, the check and a balance I really like from Heap, because as you were saying, right, you get 2 independent reviews, right? And so if you're hiring people and one group, part of the group of people you hire have a tendency to believe that all votes should count regardless, and they're just going to approve everything. And you got another group of people you hire who believe that we should conscientiously verify the identity of those people voting to ensure that they are allowed to vote in U.S. elections and that the voter is who the affidavit actually represents. Then you get that balance. Right. Instead of this one-sided system, because we know in 2022, right, what would happen when we go back to user, user 104, right?
Yeah, this is a good user right
if
here.
User 104 rejected ballot affidavit envelopes, what happened to them?
They went into the queuing process. Well, first they went to a manager's queue. No. Oh, they got re-looped back in again. That's right.
They re-looped them back in.
Right.
Right.
So the question is what happened versus what's supposed to happen.
Right.
So what's supposed to happen when they're rejected is they go to a manager to review.
Yeah.
And then after that, if they're still rejected, they go to queuing.
Right.
What happened this year in 2022 and prior is if they got rejected, instead of getting a second level of review, they were dumped back into the pool, hoping user 134 would get them.
Right. And so these are 3 examples to 1, right, of conscientious users. And so if every one of her of the ballots that she rejected, the signatures on were dumped back into the system, and we just have these 4 people doing the signature verification, then there's a greater probability that one of these speed clickers is going to get those and simply approve them.
That's right.
And so the Heap system, how is that different? You still have 2 people reviewing them, right?
You do. The difference is not no ballot is rejected or accepted until it gets clearance of 2 people.
Right.
So it's not, oh, I'm going to accept this bad ballot, but you're going to catch it.
Right.
Or I'm going to reject one and then you're going to approve it, and the second disposition just goes regardless.
Right.
They have to match.
Right.
So if I reject one and you approve one, and it doesn't match, then it goes to a manager.
Right.
It doesn't go back into a queue hoping to get a match.
Right.
And that's what they were doing. They were dumping them back in, hoping that somebody would approve something somebody else rejected.
Right.
Far different situation.
Right. And so instead of taking what was identified as a potentially bad signature and moving it up to managerial level tier and dealing with it through the curing process or something like that, i.e., calling the voter to ensure that it was the voter's ballot affidavit envelope, they would simply send it to somebody else hoping that it would go to a speed clicker and click, 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 and they'd pass it on through, right?
Absolutely.
But Heaps, if you reject and I approve, it moves up the chain. It doesn't go back into the pool.
And look, I believe that there may even be people working in signature verification that thinks everything is fraud. Right. They're going to look at something that's good that I might look at and say is good, and this person's going to say is fraud. So it doesn't just work one way. It doesn't just give a check and balance on approving bad signatures. It gives a check and balance on somebody who is overly critical.
100%.
Which creates that balance and fairness where you're not at risk of disenfranchising voters, which is the claim of the Board of Supervisors.
Right. And so, I mean, the Board of Supervisors, they're taking this position that just because a ballot is received means that it should be counted. That's essentially the position they're taking.
Right.
And so, I found a few interesting stories. Steve, can you pull up number 5? Oh, wait, number 6.
So this kind of lends credence to what we're talking about, that even if the signatures match, there's no guarantee that you're matching to a legitimate voter, right?
100%.
And so that's why signature verification cannot be voter ID.
100%.
Yes.
Go ahead. All right, so dead dog. My heart goes out to your family, the family of the dead dog. Dead dog receives register to vote by mail application from Michigan Democratic Party, and so it's interesting that the Democratic Party. We talk a lot about illegal immigrants. We talk a lot about other things and illegal voters. But the Democratic Party has stooped now, apparently in Michigan, to sending out voter registration forms to dogs, but not only just dogs, but dogs that have passed.
It's not good enough to have dead humans voting. Right. We need to pull in the dogs now.
We need to go to the local pet cemetery to register. Yeah, you can close it.
Well, I wonder why they're stopping at dogs, Brian.
Right.
More hamsters die every year than dogs. They have a much shorter lifespan.
You see anything funny in there to read?
Oh yeah, Orange County woman charged with illegally registering her dog.
That's the next one. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so this is a funny story. The woman in Orange County, she illegally registered her dog to vote in California, and she was actually voting on behalf of that dog in the dog's name, right? That is totally crazy. And the crazier thing about it is Orange County actually allowed this dog to successfully vote in the 2020 election.
Now, Brian, if we are confirming identity at
Right.
the point of initiating registration,
Right.
which is the whole premise of
Right.
how signature verification works,
Right.
how do we register a dog to vote?
That's a good question. Apparently, the Democrats figured it out.
I wonder if it was like in the cartoons where the dog
Yeah.
put on a suit, sunglasses, and a top
Right.
hat and walked into the MVD and was like, "Hey, I'm Sam. Register me to vote."
Yeah, but it's funny because the dog actually voted.
Right.
Right. The dog has a ballot actually cast and counted.
Because the signature matched,
its
because
name.
that dog had to have gone into the MVD and registered to vote, Brian.
Right. Right.
I mean, based on their logic, there's no other way this could have happened.
Right.
He walked in there,
Right.
posed as a human being,
Right.
and initiated a voter registration.
Yeah, it's a flawless system.
Absolutely.
Right. It's just like in California, there were 3 Pakistani nationals living in Pakistan. They weren't residents of California that voted in California's elections. Right? How are they registering to vote from a foreign country, getting ballots sent to their foreign country, and then voting? Or the other question are they somehow voting under the Uakava Act?
Well, that's
Yeah.
a whole nother topic, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because
whole other topic.
Uakava is another very, very failed system.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was rereading Valenzuela's testimony from the Lake Hobbs trial, and because a Specken, our expert, had found that about 70,000 ballot affidavit envelopes had bad signatures on them that should not have been counted, and so the Maricopa County Attorney's Office went through this production where they said, "Oh, well, Uakava, how many voters is that? 43,000, right? 43. I believe the number was 43,000 Uakava voters in 2022." Those are people from voting overseas who are allowed to email in a ballot. They're allowed to, text in a ballot, to fax in a ballot. However they want to vote, they can vote.
Well, and I want to make something clear that a lot of people don't understand that I want to point out.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people, when they think about Uakava, they think about military and foreign contractors. That is the genuine purpose of Uakava.
Right.
But a lot of people don't realize that there is huge funding involved in a vote abroad program where children, adult children of these American contractors are registering to vote and voting, and they have never even stepped foot on U.S. soil.
Right.
What I mean by that is, mom and dad moved to Saudi Arabia. This is like a real situation. Moved to Saudi Arabia as private contractors because there's lucrative business opportunities there. And 18 years later, their child, they have a child in Saudi Arabia who was born there, never born in the U.S., is an American citizen, is born of 2 American parents, is now 18 years old, and gets to register to vote from any location of choosing in the
forum shopping
in the United States. In other words, they can vote in any state they want.
Yep.
And then they can cast their vote without ever stepping foot on American soil.
Yeah.
There was a huge push and a huge movement that is ongoing to get these adult vote abroad citizens to register to vote in key swing states
100%.
so that they can impact the result of those swing states. So if I have an agenda and I know a race is going to be close in Georgia, Wisconsin, Arizona, Nevada, I can register to vote whatever state I feel like I can make the biggest impact in the vote. We don't have that option at all.
It's called forum shopping.
Right.
Right.
Similar to when you're just shopping for judges as an attorney, right?
Yeah.
It's the same
100%.
kind of idea. So this is dangerous. Uakava is dangerous, and we've kind of bunny trailed, but I just think too many people are not aware of this.
Right. Yeah, and Uakava, the point I was going to make, doesn't go through the normal signature verification process.
No.
So the county attorney was trying to make this big deal that the number of 70,000 by Speckin included the Uakava, right? But that was clearly false. Speckin, because we saw that the users that they were using, they had 2 administrative accounts. One administrative account was used to approve Uakava.
Right.
The other
and
administrative,
early in person.
Right. And the other administrative user account was used to automatically approve the early in person. Right. Because
and
they
early,
showed ID.
Right. Early in person are signed ballot affidavit envelopes.
Right.
They're a different color, but you show a physical ID at the polling center, so they are not held to this standard.
Right. So they were trying to make it appear as if, well, these numbers are so low because Uakava take no time, and because the in-person early voters take no time, right? Because they're just 0 seconds each.
Right.
So that drags the average down and increases the number, below the threshold that we had set. And so the evidence very clearly showed, and Ray Valenzuela, testified honestly that yes, those were excluded by Speckin in his analysis, and that data, and so that wouldn't weigh down on the total
that is
averages. Correct. But these are people, user one, that get the mail-in ballot affidavits, and so the choice, if you're a voter in Maricopa County, you need to make your voice heard about this process, because the additions made by Alexander Colladon and by Representative Colladon and Senator Rogers, when they passed that legislation in, what was it, 2023, 2024?
2024
for
timeline
signature
extension.
verification. To actually set a standard for signature verification, and then the procedural changes made by Justin Heap to require 2 people to pass a ballot before it's proved, and these people don't know that somebody else has already approved or rejected,
or how they dispositioned it.
Right.
So there's no bias involved. They're just simply
100%.
Going through, and they don't know if they're the first reviewer or the second reviewer.
Right. And so it's an actual excellent procedural change to the system that is designed to catch potential fraud. And the ballot isn't thrown in the trash, right? If it can't be dispositioned properly, then it goes to curing, right? Which is a good thing, because at the very minimum, it allows the county elections department to reach out to that voter and say, hey, you need to cure your ballot. Right. And so, we should probably do a whole show on curing. Chris, you want to do that one of these days? Whole show on curing, the various multiple ways that you can cure a ballot, right? Because text to cure is interesting, because you actually have to send a photo via text back to the elections department of your driver's license. Right. So if if you get a thing saying you got a cure and it's a text, you got to send a picture of your photo ID, which I think is a good thing. I think they should implement some change that requires you, if you're going to vote by mail, you scan a copy of your ID at a bare minimum and you put it in the envelope. And that stands as voter identification combined with your signature.
So I'm just going to push to eliminate mail-in ballots in general.
I agree 100%.
We need to get rid of them, but there are cases of disability military, right? There are those cases, and I agree. We need to have a mechanism by which we can do true identity authentication.
Right.
And as Brian said, just in my closing final thoughts in this, it is clear that the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors is going to continue to do everything they can to obstruct Recorder Heap from being able to improve the integrity of our elections. He won in Maricopa County overwhelmingly, running on a platform to secure our elections.
Right.
And the Board of Supervisors are acting contrary to the will of the citizens of Maricopa County by standing in the way of our duly elected recorder and hijacking his duties and giving them to a bureaucrat. And so if you're able to email and write your Board of Supervisors, remind them that you stand with Recorder Heap, that you voted for Recorder Heap, or maybe you didn't vote for him, but you support him now. But let them know that you want fair, honest, open, transparent elections, and that you support increased measures for signature verification.
Right. And my final thoughts are, I mean, if you go back to the 2022 election, right? Not talking about signature verification and how many non-matches were actually approved in the system, which makes our elections a total scam, right, by the way. But when you look at the other side of the house, it was the Board of Supervisors' election day duties that completely failed Maricopa County voters, wasn't it?
Yeah, and they want more responsibility. Right,
and they want to take over the vast majority of elections in the county. When in 2022, they couldn't run, the 2022 elections were the worst elections I've ever seen run in my life. I mean, Japan can hold a presidential election or a parliamentary election and have all their votes counted that same day and same night, right? But we can't seem to do that. And then in Maricopa County, you have these machine failures, right? That appeared to be my guess is they appeared to be intentional because they didn't happen prior to election day that we're aware of, right? You aware of it?
Not at all.
Right. And so you get election day. Right. None
Not
of them met the
one
standards.
machine
met
the minimum EAC requirements in 2022. Not one.
Right. Yeah.
Out of
on
all
election
of the
day.
tabulators on election day.
On election day. And so that was the Board of Supervisors who now wants, basically that agreement they offered to Heap, and they, that whole public spectacle. It was nothing more than an effort to embarrass Justin Heap, right? They have their attorney there talking about this settlement agreement, and but what does the settlement agreement offer Heap? We'll let you do this with our approval. Right.
It's all pure propaganda.
Propaganda.
It's like everything they do, they're doing it for the purpose of public opinion. Mm-hmm. They are trying to indoctrinate the people. They're trying to plant a narrative.
Right.
And, we got to see through it. That's bottom line, people. We need to educate ourselves. We need to know what's really going on, and we need to not fall for this anymore.
Right. What do you think about Iran?
It's interesting. I'm going to kind of hold off and reserve a little bit of judgment there. I do find it fascinating how many Iranian people who are living all across the world are celebrating America's response. And America
because they couldn't live at home without risk of being killed or tortured, right?
Right.
I'm supportive of it, and the reason I'm supportive of it, if you listen to the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, and we can actually see the truth in a lot of what he's saying, is that Iran had this massive long-range ballistic missile program going, where they can reach Europe, they can reach all over the Middle East, and we can actually see that playing out now, right?
Right.
2 ballistic missiles or cruise missiles were recently, prior to us starting a show, the last headline I saw, on their way to the U.S. Embassy in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. They've been bombing all over the Middle East using these long-range drones and ballistic missiles. And so, the question becomes, a lot of people out there that are mad at Trump, that are MAGA, that are saying, "Oh, we can't be in this war." Well, what what's Iran's mantra? And what has Iran's mantra always been?
Death to America.
Death to America, right?
Right.
Ever since the Ayatollah Khomeini deposed the Shah of Iran, overthrew the Shah's government in the 70s, their mantra has been one thing and one thing only, and that is death to America.
Absolutely.
Right? And so you have Iran with this huge ballistic missile and cruise missile program where they're able to strike all over Europe and all over the Middle East, and soon they would have been able to strike the United States. When do you pull the pin?
Right.
Becomes the ultimate question.
Well, and I will tell you, that is the one thing that really excites me about this.
Right.
I hate to say it, is the fact that we finally have a president who does what he says he's going to do.
Right.
And he said, here's where we're at. Iran, you need to do this.
Right.
You're not going to do it. Guess what? I'm not screwing around. Strength through force.
Right.
And
Steve?
I appreciate that.
You want to say something? Just scream. Scream. It's very interesting that the dictator in Iran has been in office for 47 years, and our 47th president has taken him out.
Yeah, that is an interesting fact
Right.
that we learned yesterday. 47-year regime taken down by America's 47th president.
Right.
Divine destiny, guys.
Right.
We're gonna. I don't know where it's gonna end, but
Yeah.
it's definitely strange.
Right. And one more thought. I got one more thought before we go. And this shows why the United States of America must get a handle on this very highly politicized, bureaucratic, administrative state. Did you hear that a federal government employee of the national security agencies put listening devices and wiretap devices on Secretary Noem's phone and other devices and other Trump appointees' devices? Right?
Right.
That's insane, isn't it?
It's absolutely insane. I mean, it's 100 times worse than the whole Watergate scandal.
100 times worse. That's Watergate blown off the planet.
Right.
Right.
That's
right next to the Chinese Huawei trip.
right.
Yeah.
Steve asked if they put the listening devices next to the Chinese listening devices that are embedded in our
Well, it's funny
electronic.
because when I was in Brazil, I broke my phone, so I had to buy a new one. And they sell Huawei all throughout Latin America because I had to buy two phones while I was down, one in Panama and one in Brazil. And they were both Huawei phones. So
Oh, jeez.
I get back to the United States thinking I'm going to use my Huawei phone. Right? No go. They will not work at all on
They're
a
illegal.
U.S. network.
Yeah.
Right?
Can't
They will
import
not.
them.
They will not connect to anything. I thought so. I had to throw them both away.
So while you're traveling in
Right.
Brazil, the Chinese were following you, Brian.
Yeah,
Just saying.
they know that they're going to get a lot from me, by God. So, yeah.
Well, thanks for listening. Thanks for tuning in. I hope you learned something educational, and we hope to see you back. So have a very blessed week.
Yep. And peace.
Peace.
Yeah.